What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you. Very excited to talk about this announcement surrounding the PFL merger, MVP, what it represents. And to me, I'll just say it. This is the last stand, I think. This is the last hurrah. This is going to be the final significant opportunity for an organization to come up. And I don't want to say challenge the UFC, but that's kind of what we're always talking about. And it's interesting to me that when I look at this weekend's landscape, I see so many people talking poorly about not only the UFC card, but the name value on some of these cards. You've got Euros Medic and C-Rod. They've never main evented, maybe outside of a regional promotion, never main evented. Now they main event. You've got a guy at the media scrum today asking Dana, who are you looking forward to on this fight card? And Dana basically clowning on him and saying, I'm not going to answer such a vague question. When years ago, Dana got asked a question very similar to this about Jimmy Crute and basically tried to clown on a fan and say, oh, if you don't know who Jimmy Crute is, you must not watch. You must not know. How do you not get excited for a Jimmy Crute fight? But when you look at where we are now, the PFL's got a very solid card set for tomorrow. But a lot of people don't know. And the reason they don't know, if you go back and listen to the interview I just put up with John Martin, is he basically comes out and says that, hey, we're not getting the promotion we need. We're not getting the marketing we need. And to be fair, he puts the ownership on him to a degree. So when you look at this merger, it's checking a lot of these boxes. This is media. This is athlete development. This is global content distribution possibilities. Where do you expect the PFL to be? Do you think they're going to go to Netflix? Probably not with TKO. Do you think they're going to go to Paramount? Probably not with UFC. Now, on ESPN, do you think they would get a little bit more? Yes, I personally do. It's sometimes you have to look for PFL fights to be a PFL fan. It's hard to be a PFL fan because you're constantly looking, where is the card this week? How can I watch the card? It shouldn't be that way. All of this should just be readily available, if not marketed to you. And I think that's probably the biggest positive with the PFL is they're gaining access to this marketing reach that MVP has, this visibility, the prospect of maybe, a younger audience. Because PFL has spent years putting themselves in a position to be successful with these opportunities. They have a strong roster. They have a massive international infrastructure. They have so many cards overseas. I think after they leave the U.S. this month, they're overseas for quite a while. They consistently put on quality events where you watch and you say, okay, this is a professional MMA organization. This has the look, this has the sound, this has the commentary, this has everything but the promotion, but the marketing. And MVP brings that promotional power. They bring that influence. They elevate where they need to be. And I think it strengthens a lot of the things that we've wanted in the PFL, the business side of things. You've got investors coming in with money. You've got this company that probably has the strongest balance sheet they've ever had. They certainly have a lot more stability than they did combining these organizations. And hopefully it's going to allow the MMA side to thrive. You know, John Martin is massive on his ownership of this and basically coming out and saying, this is a little bit on me. So combining these companies means that he gets kind of the operational side of things in place. You've got a ton of ability for hype, ability for promotion with MVP. And if you really want to boil it down, when you look at what the Paul brothers have done, you do have a little bit of resentment there with the UFC where they constantly do want to come out and compete with them. Also, what's important to me is this is not replacing what the PFL's built. It's expanding on it. And that's one of the things that really, if you look at the lineage of the PFL, go all the way back to World Series of Fighting, it's one of the things they've struggled with is kind of that consistency. They've always tried to be better by being different. Go back to where they tried the tournament format, they tried the team format, they tried that points format. They've tried all these different things to set themselves apart when really what they've needed to do is just do what they do really well. Build their own stars really well. And they've done a great job at building those stars. I mean, Dakota Ditchev is a prime example of them building a star. Kayla Harrison, prime example of them building a star. Now, one of the things I kind of don't like that they do is they will periodically take from UFC rosters, guy like Brian Battle, who I love Brian Battle. I'm a huge Brian Battle fan, but I never understood the mindset of, okay, let's take this UFC level guy, let's throw him immediately in against our champion, Johnny Eblen. Because that puts you at a real issue either way. If Brian Battle beats Johnny Eblen, when now it looks like a guy that got released from the UFC for whatever reason, the casual fan might not realize that it was, weight issues and all these things. They may just see somebody that to them wasn't good enough to maintain themselves in the UFC. Now he comes in and beats your champion. What does that say about the quality of your roster? Very little to the casual fan that might not realize Johnny Eblen is top 5 middleweight on the planet for the last 3 years. Probably could go compete at the UFC and do very well. Or you have what happens. Johnny Eblen kind of makes the fight against Brian Battle less competitive than you'd like. Now what have you done? Now you've got Brian Battle in a situation where he has basically go back from the bottom and work his way up the rankings. Now he's got to fight Dalton Rosta, who just got knocked out by Empik Kasunganai, who just got knocked out by Johnny Eblen again. So what are we building? Like, how are we building these storylines? That lineage of the division doesn't make any sense to me. You should have started with Brian Battle and Dalton Rosta and worked your way forward. And I understand there's a lot of things that happened. Van Steenen's getting hurt. A lot of things happened to kind of break all that apart. But still, the mentality, in my opinion, from the matchmaking wasn't really there. It was just basically almost like, oh, we've got this new shiny toy in Brian Battle. Let's play with it first. Doesn't really make a lot of sense in the long term. Short term, great. Yeah, exactly. Brian Battle, Johnny Eblen are going to fight. Oh my God, I'm an MMA fan. Where? But where does that put you 3-4 months from now? Right? Not in the best position. And hopefully they can have a little bit of better understanding with MVP of how to influence those things. Make kind of these rosters and fights and cards you're putting together a little bit more attractive to the casual fan, which is going to in turn make it more appealing to a broadcaster, which is going to in turn help you with those streaming partnerships. Does a TV deal even come into this? Does a TV deal even matter anymore? Does being on regular cable matter to the PFL when really no other MMA organization is there? I mean, I would think it couldn't hurt. This also helps PFL have these larger marquee events. They've already got, as I said, a lot of talent, a lot of global structure, but MVP has demonstrated the ability to have significant attention around these fight cards, to get celebrities involved. And those are things that the casual fans need to see. Those are things that even maybe non-fans of MMA need to see. Because that, to them, is an instant credibility when you have all these athletes out at these events. And let me just say, going to PFL events, they've been there, right? They have Olympians. They have NFL players, MLB players. It's just not marketed. It's just not sold enough. So overall, I think this move really positions the PFL for growth rather than maintaining the way they've been doing. It gives them financial resources. It gives them marketing power. It gives them probably some different leadership continuity. And it expands everything while still preserving what the PFL has worked really hard to get to. The roster, the international presence, as I said, the ability to put on these world-class MMA events. Watch the card tomorrow. Guarantee you, it looks like a world-class production. I will close this by saying, having went out to a lot of PFL events, a lot of RAF events, one of the things that really needs to be worked on outside of the UFC, and I guess just for the understanding of how this works, your UFC credentials is very difficult to get. If you get UFC credentials, you've probably been in this game for either a long time, you know someone that's been in this game for a long time, or you're operating under a entity that can get you credentials. Okay. One of the things that these, kind of mid-tier organizations really need to work on is getting consistent media out to these events. The benefit of being media and going out to 3, 4, 5, 6 events for the same brand helps you familiarize yourself with the athletes, with the other journalists and media, with the leadership, and it creates an environment where you know the brand more. You're asking better questions. You're more ingrained. And I obviously don't know who's waiting for me in New York, but I can tell you from Pittsburgh to DC, there was maybe only 1 or 2 of the same people. And that's just going from, March to July. That's not a meaningful amount of time. To put an RAF spin on this, I believe there's only 1 or 2 groups that I've seen at the last 4 or 5 RAF events. So you really need to focus on maintaining those relationships with the media that does come out. And I don't know how they do that. I don't know how they incentivize getting the same media out. But that to me would be a massive step in trying to secure, okay, here's people that we can count on to help build this brand. What you can't do, and I hope this doesn't happen, is say, okay, well, now that we've got this relationship with MVP, we're going to close doors to your non-traditional media outlets, and instead we're going to open the door to, the mainstream media that's been ignoring us essentially for the better part of the last 4 or 5 years. You still need to have kind of those grassroots journalists there. So hopefully they can kind of find a way to do that, to get consistency in the people that cover the events, because that's what's going to help them create the best content to promote your event. But outside of that, people always talk about, the UFC needs competition. The UFC needs competition. Can't let the UFC have a monopoly. Well, here you go. Here you go. This is probably your last opportunity. Your Golden Boy Productions a couple years ago really couldn't do it. Really couldn't do it. Any venture to try to start, I don't even think you can, at this point, go at the UFC. I think the best thing you can do is just be visible alongside them. No company is going to take over what the UFC's built. They've building it for so long. But if you look at even the UFC in contrast, they haven't been able to maintain a distribution deal. If you go back, Fox was supposed to be, the big breaking point. Paramount was supposed to be the big breaking point. ESPN supposed to be the big break. The Reebok deal was supposed to be the watershed moment. And you look at it now in hindsight and you're like, that's not exactly what that turned out to be. I mean, as from a fan's perspective, I am much more satisfied with Venom fight kits than I was the Reebok fight kits. But we'll see how things pan out. Interesting time to be an MMA fan. Very interesting time, specifically this weekend, to see how these two organizations are going to pan out. Love to know your thoughts on it. Appreciate you watching, and be back as soon as I can with more comments.